So the real question here is, why did we have to do that, right? It seems like a lot to do to just recreate the same surface that we already had, meaning this surface right here. Well, the difference is, at least visually, right? You can understand here that this surface goes to the center line of the column, but this surface only goes to the face of the column. So when I go through the process of splitting this thing, and I'm just going to do a real quick one. You guys don't have to do this. I just want to show you. Plug that in, plug this in, plug that in, and, well, I mean, I guess that's fine. So this one is actually going to create a clean facade that goes all the way up. You guys understand that, right? And then the problem with that, or the problem that we have with the other one, is that this one, down here at the bottom, that whole panel, that whole third panel is being eaten up by the actual column itself. Okay, so there are some things that you can do differently. In reality, the surfaces probably won't be warped in this fashion, and in fact, they might be tapered. In like what we saw in the example that I showed you before, there were some sort of triangulated panels and some were tapered, but it's all a design decision. But I wanted to make sure that you know how to trim this thing down like that. Okay? Actually, what I want is that configuration. I lied. I don't want that configuration. What I'm going to do here is grab the same subdivision that I created the other day. I'm not sure. I think it was last class or the class before that. The one where we subdivided it at exactly the floor plates. Okay? So that's very important. We're going to go back here, and I think it was it that? No. This one, I think, perhaps, yeah. So this was the subdivision that we created that cut it exactly on the floor plates. So I'm going to trace this route back to its origin, where it actually started the subdivision, and that's right here. So if I can take that whole section and just copy and paste it over to the next section, that should really just do exactly the same thing, but on the surface that I need it on. So I'll copy and paste, drag it all the way over. And whether or not you leave this guy here doesn't really matter, because remember, these params, they're empty housings. So I could just reconnect it into that one, and it'll connect the other two, or I can actually reconnect here on subsurf and divide. But I'm just going to plug that one in here and take a look at what it resulted in. Turn that off, go back here, and look at my facade. Looks like I have an extra line there, and I'm missing something there. That's weird. It's perfectly fine there. Oh, is it backwards? No. Pre-cut floor plate, heights, bounding box, list length. Huh. Alright, let me troubleshoot this one too. Sorry, guys. Alright, I think I identified it. I need you all to pay attention. All of you. Okay. So I think the problem is that back here in the subsurf, it looks like it's subdividing it in the opposite direction, because I don't see any vertical subdivisions. All I see are horizontal subdivisions. So in order to correct that, I think I just need to flip it so that the 6 is a 1 and the 1 is a 6. Okay, so that creates those vertical striations that you saw on this facade, my study facade. And then, theoretically, when I turn this back on, they should all sync up. And it looks like they do. Does that make sense? Take your silence as a yes. You guys are wiped out from design this week, huh? All right. Well, don't worry. This won't go on. The torture won't continue for too long. So something I need to kind of warn you about is that when you're over-regulating these systems, meaning you make assumptions about them either being the same or being different, there will be some issues you need to work out. For instance, this sky lobby, right? It's like 4 times the height of a regular floor. So if I reduce the panel by a percentage value, let's say I reduce it by 1% on all sides. Well, 1% on the top and bottom of this panel is going to be much smaller than 1% on the top and bottom of that panel. Okay? So the way that we would want to do it is to reduce it by magnitude. And that's a really complicated process. So I will say this. One of the things that you should focus on most when you're doing these kinds of exercises is how much information and accuracy you need to build into the definition. So if we're looking at this building from this far away, no one's going to see the difference really between the 1% at the sky lobby versus a regular floor. Well, I mean, they might, but it just depends. You'll have to be the judge of that. So for simplicity's sake, we're going to stick with that for now. Should we ever encounter a point where we need to change those values and use magnitudes instead, we can do that. The challenge that I want to point out here is that anytime we panelize this and break it down into individual panels, if we use offset curve, there's no guarantee that it's going to offset all in the same and proper direction. There are a few definitions that we can dig up for that, but it's a pretty complicated thing. So for your sake, stick with percentage value params, reductions and stuff, and like offsets for now, until you get a little bit more mastery. Right? You guys understand that? All right, monologue over. Let's do it. So the surfaces are here. They're all individual surfaces, 120 of them. We're going to go to math, domain, construct domain squared, surface, utility, and isotrim. By now you guys memorized this, right? Take your silence as a yes. Reparameterize. Plug the domain in. And then we need to set our values. 0 to 1.00. Plug in 1. Plug in 2. Plug in 3, and plug in 4. Okay. So we have umin, umax, vmin, vmax, and that's going to be our full panel. But I'm going to reduce this by a certain percentage, and most of my panels are square, with the exception of a few. But with most of them being square, I'm just going to reduce them by a small percentage each direction. I think I'm going to start with 1%, so 0.01 and 0.99. And I'll do the same here, 0.01 and 0.99. And I'll zoom in to see how much of a difference that really made. And it didn't really make much. That's weird. Doesn't seem to be cutting horizontally. Huh. Whoa. Weird. Why is it doing that? All right, well, okay, sorry, I gotta pause to troubleshoot again.